A handsome young man looks down with concern, gently asking if Lisette is awake. As he softly urges her to wake up, a maid peeks in to ask the lord if she should escort the madam to the bedroom. The man warmly declines the maid's offer, insisting that everything is perfectly fine. The maid quickly apologizes, prompting the man to quietly agree with his own thoughts. He remarks tenderly that Lisette will undoubtedly feel lonely whenever she finally wakes up. Wrapped securely in his warm, broad arms, she listens peacefully to her husband's gentle voice. He tells her to get some rest, solidifying his presence as her ultimate safe place. Overwhelmed with emotion, she realizes she never thought she could be this happy, as he promises they will talk again when she wakes. Slumped among a massive pile of books, a dark figure reflects that back then, she never could have even imagined such a happy future. This marks the beginning of Chapter 1. Staring blankly into the distance, she admits that she never truly had a place where she belonged. A harsh voice demands to know why Lisette is out of her room, furiously reprimanding her for leaving. Her abusive mother violently yanks her by the hair, despising Lisette's unique magic attributes despite her being the eldest daughter of the Archie-Count family. The cruel woman mocks Lisette's striking red eyes and declares that their noble family has absolutely no need for a fire attribute. Glaring down with pure disgust, her mother viciously states that pink hair is nothing but disgraceful. The woman sighs in profound exasperation at the mere sight of her own daughter. Standing over the cowering girl, the mother cruelly questions why she ever gave birth to a child like this. Weeping on the floor, Lisette wishes she had been born with water or earth magic like her parents, crying that her life is ruined simply because she was born with fire. Handing her a black wig and magical glasses, her mother orders her to hide her true colors and warns that she won't be allowed outside if she appears in any other shade. Adding to the misery, her beautifully dressed younger sisters enter the room and innocently ask their mother who this strange girl is. The mother coldly instructs the younger girls to ignore their older sister, branding Lisette as a complete and utter failure. Camille and Celine cheerfully agree to their mother's cruel command with bright, oblivious smiles. The younger sisters mockingly call her a pathetic failure as Lisette clutches her books in silent humiliation. Despite the torment, Lisette knows she must inherit the Archie-Count family, otherwise she won't have a place anywhere. Arriving at the Grand Academy entrance ceremony at age 15, she holds onto a desperate hope that her family will finally accept her someday. She remembers her father's strict order that she will inherit the county alongside her newly appointed fiancé, Damien Barbies. Anxious about walking this difficult path together, she silently hopes Damien is someone she can truly understand. Scanning the elegant meeting hall, she wonders if the young man standing nearby is her designated partner. Mustering her courage, she steps forward to politely introduce herself to Damien. Damien scratches his head in blatant disgust, outright refusing to believe this plain girl is his fiancée. Staring through her thick glasses, Lisette is stunned as he cruelly remarks that it's a good thing their engagement hasn't been officially announced yet. Damien brutally declares that while he can't refuse the arrangement, he wants absolutely nothing to do with her until they are forced to marry. He orders her never to speak to him at school, making it clear he only plans to marry into the family on paper. Walking away with a heavy sigh, he casually insults her by wishing she were at least cuter or shorter. Turning his back completely, Damien warns her not to ever get involved with him as he strides out of the room. Left entirely alone, a devastated Lisette silently wonders why this cruel fate is happening to her. She questions the broken promise, wondering if he wasn't supposed to inherit the Archie family alongside her as planned. Her lonely academy life begins as she studies relentlessly, even managing to place second in the prestigious academy-wide exam. Despite her massive academic success, none of the students acknowledge her, loudly whispering that no matter how smart she is, a girl with her dark looks can never marry. Damien openly joins the mockery, agreeing with the vicious rumors and swearing he will never choose her even if ordered to inherit the house. Forced to silently endure the humiliation, she watches Damien engage in constant womanizing right in front of her. Hoping to just survive until graduation, her burden only grows when her younger sister Camille enters the academy 2 years later and begins spending recklessly. The long-awaited graduation party finally arrives, but absolutely nothing has progressed in her strained relationship with Damien. Searching the grand ballroom for her elusive fiancé, Lisette nervously hopes it is acceptable that she attended the formal event in her standard school uniform. Suddenly, she hears a familiar voice call out to her, prompting her to turn around in surprise. Her younger sister steps out of the crowd, mockingly greeting her and noting that she finally decided to show up. Shocked to see her sibling there instead of her fiancé, Lisette stammers out Camille's name in utter confusion. Damien confidently wraps his arm around Camille, casually announcing to a horrified Lisette that it doesn't matter which of the three sisters he marries, as he has officially chosen Camille. Clenching her fists, Lisette demands to know what he means, only for Damien to smirk and reveal that her own father gave him the freedom to choose any sister except the one he despises. Reeling from the ultimate betrayal, Lisette desperately wonders about their duties as lords, questioning when those two even met and if it happened at the glamorous parties she was deliberately excluded from. Camille sneers that Damien-sama and she can handle the work perfectly fine, tauntingly adding that the menial tasks should be easy enough for her older sister. Damien cruelly offers to let Lisette stay in the house after graduation if she helps with his work since she has nowhere to go, prompting Camille to maliciously praise his fake kindness toward absolute failures. A shadowed figure coldly agrees that they must protect Camille from criticism, calculating that kicking out a useless woman to die would simply look incredibly bad for the noble family's reputation. Standing in profound isolation, Lisette bleakly reasons that it is probably better that she isn't marrying Damien, desperately hoping it doesn't actually matter who inherits as long as he marries into the family. Accepting the harsh reality that he strictly prefers cute girls, she silently endures Camille's patronizing, entirely fake apology for ruthlessly stealing her fiancé. Damien affectionately calls Camille his incredibly cute girl, urging her to leave with him while completely ignoring Lisette's agonizing presence in the room. Watching them walk away together through the heavy double doors, a utterly devastated Lisette finally turns and flees the oppressive, suffocating scene. Sprinting frantically across the cobblestone path under the expansive night sky, she abruptly halts her escape as agonizing questions of, "How could this happen?" tear violently at her breaking heart. Trembling in the cold darkness, she tearfully wonders if she truly has absolutely nowhere left to belong, questioning if all her relentless, grueling effort was ultimately for nothing. As she furiously wipes her streaming tears, a mysterious voice warns that rubbing her eyes so harshly will only cause pain, gently asking what a girl like her is doing crying out here all alone. A handsome, elegantly dressed young man smiles warmly and extends a pristine handkerchief, silently encouraging the weeping girl to dry her sorrowful eyes. Lisette stares up at him in stunned, tearful silence, completely caught off guard by this highly unexpected act of genuine compassion. The charming young man continues to offer his handkerchief with a dazzling, empathetic smile under the beautifully shimmering night sky. Utterly bewildered, Lisette stammers and asks if he is actually talking to her, prompting the young man to chuckle and ask if she is mistaking him for someone else or if there happens to be another person crying nearby. She nervously declines the handkerchief, but he smoothly hands it over anyway after noting she must be an academy student, genuinely insisting that it is far too dangerous to be out alone and offering to walk her safely back. Looking away with deep insecurity, she warns him to keep his distance because she inherently possesses the widely despised appearance of a dark attribute user. Dark trauma instantly floods her mind as she recalls Damien's absolute disgust at the prospect of her being his fiancé, followed rapidly by her own mother cruelly wishing she had never given birth to such a child. The traumatic taunts continue to echo loudly in her head, mocking her shameful dark attribute and overly intense appearance while reminding her once again that Damien only prefers conventionally cute girls. Fully preparing her fragile heart for his inevitable rejection and disgust, she bleakly confirms her supposedly cursed status. To her absolute shock, the elegant young man simply stares back with an completely unbothered expression, casually asking what her dark appearance has to do with absolutely anything. Dismissing her deep-seated insecurities completely, he gently urges her to come along with him, kindly noting that the night air is quickly getting cold. Arriving safely at the imposing wrought iron academy gates, she bows deeply and nervously asks if this drop-off point is far enough, expressing her profound gratitude while he casually tells her not to worry about it. Turning gracefully to leave, he flashes a bright smile and tells her not to hang her head in sorrow, gently reminding her that the glittering stars are exceptionally beautiful tonight. Watching his incredibly tall, distinguished figure depart into the shadows, she reflects on how remarkably kind he was to a total, weeping stranger. She marvels that he didn't judge her by her dark looks or magical attributes, treating her with genuine human decency even though he walked away before giving his name. Staring blankly into the tranquil night, she admits in complete awe that she never truly believed someone so unconditionally kind actually existed in this cruel, judgmental world. Gazing thoughtfully out her window at the twinkling night sky, The profound memory of his unexpected kindness securely anchors her fragile, healing spirit. A soft, beautifully hopeful smile finally graces her previously sorrowful face as she whispers that the stars are indeed beautiful. She looks out at the endless, distant night sky stretching forever across the horizon, where countless stars shine brilliantly in the expansive dark. Bathed in the ethereal starlight, she quietly holds onto the resilient hope that someday she will finally find her own rightful place in the world. Remembering the kind stranger's vividly shining presence, she wishes with all her battered heart that she too could shine as brightly as those distant celestial bodies. Adjusting her glasses with a renewed sense of gentle purpose, she smiles softly and prays that her humble dream miraculously comes true someday. Suddenly, the narrative timeline shifts as shocked voices exclaim in absolute disbelief, frantically demanding to know what the older sister has allegedly done. A highly distressed girl gasps upon hearing the scandalous rumor that Damien-sama officially chose Camille, meaning the older sister's engagement was abruptly and publicly broken off. Vicious whispers of fake pity circulate rapidly through the academy halls as someone praises Celine's apparent kindness while simultaneously mocking how pitiful the newly abandoned sister is. Overwhelmed by the suffocating gossip and profound social betrayal, a terribly weary Lisette quietly begs to be left completely alone for just a little while. A seemingly concerned voice agrees to leave her be, falsely advising her not to push herself too hard amidst the scandalous emotional wreckage of the engagement break. As soon as the door shuts, the comforting facade drops instantly, and a sinister voice maliciously questions why things unfolded in this specific way. The younger sister's tearful expression twists violently into a malicious, triumphant sneer as she celebrates that there was no way her ugly older sister could ever get married. Gloating over her sister's utter social ruin, the wicked sibling revels in the tragic downfall of poor, pitiful Lisette, before suddenly gasping in wicked realization. An evil, manic spark lights up her eyes as she gleefully declares that she has just come up with a truly great, diabolical idea. Meanwhile, wandering the empty, echoing halls alone, a melancholic Lisette wonders if she will ever cross paths with that unimaginably kind person ever again. Her lonely, quiet thoughts are abruptly interrupted as a door swings open, revealing an imposing pair of boots that makes her gasp in pure, startled confusion. Lisette stares in pure shock as the highly esteemed Professor Nicolas and the distinguished Captain Renoir suddenly appear right in front of her. Captain Renoir gently notes she looks a bit down, which she frantically denies, while Professor Nicolas questions why she is out so late when the graduation party should already be completely over. Acknowledging that exhausting graduation parties are absolutely terrible, the men casually admit they dislike gatherings too and advise her to just get some much-needed rest for the day. Captain Renoir leans in slightly, his sharp eyes narrowing as he smoothly transitions to the real, far more serious reason for their unexpected arrival. Trembling under their intense, perceptive gaze, Lisette anxiously wonders why these two powerful figures always seem to perfectly see right through her fragile, carefully constructed defenses. Flashing back to exactly 1 year ago, the narrative reveals the exact momentous occasion she was suddenly called into a private, high-stakes meeting by these imposing authorities. Magic teacher Nicolas Ludec, the severe man who practically runs the entire academy, stares her down and ominously declares that there is something extremely important he needs to discuss with her. Stepping away from the open area, someone insists they head to the lab where they can speak freely. An older man with glasses looks back with mild surprise, checking to see if the newcomer is all right. The professor sharply interrogates a dark-haired man's sudden appearance, scolding him for coming and going as he pleases while a girl watches nervously. Sighing in exasperation, the dark-haired man defends himself by claiming he is also there for work and just wants to research something. Glaring at the brat, the professor grips his cane as Lisette timidly asks who the strange person is. Flashing a confident smile, Everest Renoir introduces himself as the captain of the Royal Court Mage Corps while complaining about his terrible treatment. Captain Renoir correctly deduces that she used fire and wind magic during her exam, questioning why she maintains a dark attribute appearance unless she possesses 3 attributes. Sweating profusely, Lisette stammers and wonders how on earth she can explain this complicated situation to her professor. To her absolute shock, the captain casually deduces that her dark hair is nothing but a wig. Connecting the dots, the professor realizes her eye color must also be a magical item and respectfully promises not to pry into her reasons. Smiling awkwardly, Lisette agrees to remove the disguises since cheating isn't allowed, only to suddenly find her hands frozen in fear. The captain immediately halts the professor, recognizing that forcing her to undress her disguise will only trigger the agonizing memory of her mother screaming in her head. Revealing his own dark eyes, the captain solemnly explains that he understands the pain of being universally hated simply for having dark coloring. Realizing she is making them worry, Lisette stares with wide eyes as the captain notes that anyone hiding themselves so desperately must have a grave reason. She confesses that her busy father likely doesn't know her true attributes, while her abusive mother ordered her to hide her despised pink hair and red eyes. The professor warns that her fake appearance will ruin her chances of finding a fiancé to inherit the house, but the captain argues she should just reveal her dual attributes. Smiling sadly, Lisette admits she already has a fiancé who coldly ordered her never to speak to him at school. Rubbing his forehead in dismay, the professor laments that both Lisette's father and her noble fiancé, Damien Barbise, were once his students. Placing a gentle hand on her shoulder, the professor promises to step in and help if she ever wants to leave her oppressive household. He declares that even after graduation, he will arrange a prestigious job for her as a royal court lady. Dismissing her humble protests, he insists her excellent grades and flawless etiquette make her perfectly suited for the noble role. Overcoming her worries about living arrangements, the professor assures her the palace dormitories will provide everything she needs. Lisette begins to tearfully thank him, but the captain suddenly interrupts with a wild suggestion that she become a mage instead. Conjuring a brilliant flame, the captain explains that fire magic combined with her high mana guarantees she will grow incredibly strong. Grabbing her shoulder with a maniacal grin, he vows to train her thoroughly starting immediately, leaving Lisette utterly bewildered. Following that fateful day, she balanced her time helping Professor Nicola with research and enduring Captain Renoir's brutal magic training. Snapping back to the present, both men stare at her with deep concern, demanding to know what tragedy has befallen her. Looking downcast, Lisette finally breaks the news that her engagement has been suddenly called off. She reveals that Damien plans to marry her sister Camille and inherit the Archie family, arrogantly claiming ruling is easy enough for just the two of them. The professor erupts in furious disbelief, screaming that it is entirely unacceptable after they raised her as the heir her whole life. Calling her family disgusting, the professor demands they face punishment while Lisette desperately tries to calm his seething rage. The captain steps forward with a deadly serious glare, fully agreeing with the professor's outrage. Clenching his fist, Renoir furiously points out that ruling a territory is incredibly difficult and foolish people could never manage it. When Lisette tearfully asks if she will just be a burden, the professor gently reiterates his plan for her to work as a court lady since she no longer needs to inherit. The captain suddenly cuts off her self-deprecation, stepping forward to announce he has made a grand decision. Pointing dramatically, he declares he will adopt her as his own daughter, leaving Lisette reeling in absolute shock. The professor instantly shuts the idea down, arguing Renoir is too young and claiming he will be the one to adopt her instead. Lisette awkwardly raises a hand, completely confused as to why she needs to be adopted to become a court lady. The captain explains that noble law dictates court ladies must have noble status, meaning registering under either of their families will brilliantly sever her ties to the Archie house. As the two men bicker over whose family backing would protect her best, Lisette finally realizes how much genuine support she has. Buoyed by their kindness, she successfully graduates from the academy, moves into the palace dorms, and fully embraces her new life. Now serving confidently in the inner palace where the royals reside, she cheerfully assists her grateful co-workers with their documents. Grateful to be stationed far away from her father's legal affairs division, she happily assures her kind mentors that she has adapted to the peaceful job. Ultimately, she became Professor Nicola's adopted daughter under the name Ludec, thriving as a court lady with Captain Renoir's continued support. Her co-worker happily calls out to her, eager to add one more piece of advice. Praising her paperwork, the woman explains that the inner palace allows people to work as long as they are capable, making it a haven for unmarried women. Leaning in with a teasing smile, her friend asks if it is still too hard for her to take off her wig today. Clutching her chest with a wistful smile, Lisette admits she cannot show her true appearance yet, but believes this is the perfect place for her. Despite finding a sanctuary where she is valued, she privately confesses that she has tried to remove the disguise several times. Staring into the distance, she acknowledges the lingering trauma, realizing she simply couldn't bring herself to take it off just yet. Haunted by the vivid memory of her mother's verbal abuse, Lisette trembles as she recalls being harshly questioned for her presence. Her mother's cruel voice echoes in her mind, condemning her red eyes and disgraceful pink hair while claiming the family has no need for fire attributes. The psychological scars deepen as she remembers her mother lamenting ever giving birth to a child like her. Suddenly, her coworker's sharp voice snaps her back to reality, calling her name to break the trance. Lisette remains momentarily dazed, her mouth slightly agape as she struggles to process the transition from her nightmare to the present. Both women immediately begin apologizing to one another, with Lisette frantically taking the blame for her momentary lapse. Shifting the mood, her coworker reveals that a new job request has just come in for her. Lisette learns that she is tasked with delivering important documents to the Outer Palace. Her friend explains that she was supposed to go herself but was reassigned, noting Lisette's current appearance situation might be a factor. Her coworker warns her to be extremely careful, as the Outer Palace handles national politics and feels vastly different from their peaceful Inner Palace. Standing before the imposing gates, Lisette realizes she has finally reached the entrance to the Outer Palace. She informs the guard of her mission, and after a brief check of the papers, he allows her to pass. As she steps onto the cracked ground inside, a mysterious observer hums in contemplation. The unknown figure notes to themselves that the situation is exactly as she had described. Almost immediately, Lisette feels a heavy, oppressive air and the distinct sensation of being watched from the shadows. Passing by, a group of men begins to gossip, questioning if she possesses a combat attribute based on her look. The whispers turn hostile as they mockingly point out her black hair and eyes, wondering why a dark attribute is working as a court lady. Feeling the sting of their prejudice, she realizes the environment is indeed nothing like the welcoming Inner Palace. Determined to avoid conflict, Lisette decides to deliver her package and flee the area as quickly as possible. She reflects on how central nobles often abandon dark attribute babies out of pure hatred, illustrating the deep-seated prejudice of the capital. Though she finishes her delivery on December 14th, she sighs in relief while worrying that coming here alone was a major mistake. Desperate to return to her safe haven, she picks up her pace to get back to her regular work. Her heart jumps as she notices something unexpected in her path. She realizes a group of drunken noble sons is closing in and staring directly at her. Relying on her long experience with prejudice, she decides it is best to simply ignore them and not engage. She picks up her pace, her feet moving rapidly across the floor to escape the encounter. Despite her attempt to walk past, a man's voice sneers, mockingly asking why a black one is even there. One of the noblemen blocks her path, insultingly suggesting it is shameful for a woman to be so tall and asking if she's just seeking attention. Lisette keeps her head down, repeating a mental mantra to not engage with the harassment. Aggressively reaching out, the noble son demands she not ignore him, calling her dark attribute as he grabs her. Terrified, she struggles against his grip and begs him to let her go as he mocks her fear. Tears well up in her eyes as she frantically pleads for him to release his hand from her wrist. The noble sneers at her, calling her pathetic because she looks like she is about to cry. A new, calm voice cuts through the tension, asking which of them is truly the pathetic one. The newcomer tells the noble to go ahead and speak if he has something to say, signaling the start of a confrontation. Lisette looks up in shock, wondering if this is the same kind man who gave her a handkerchief at her graduation party. The silver-haired man stares down the harasser, coldly asking if the noble is only brave enough to speak to a court lady but not to him. The previously bold noble's son immediately begins stammering apologies, pathetically claiming he's just had too much to drink. The drunkard trembles in fear, his confidence completely evaporated under the silver-haired man's gaze. With a final, "Excuse me," the noble and his friends flee the scene in a panic as the rescuer sighs. Looking after them, the man laments that there are truly pathetic nobles who would harass such a cute girl. Lisette stands frozen in confusion, her mind reeling at being called cute. She tries to convince herself he couldn't possibly mean her, still struggling to understand his words. The man gently takes her hand to inspect it, asking if her wrist is okay since the noble's grip left it red and painful. Lisette is struck by how gently he holds her, noting the immense contrast between his touch and the noble's aggression. She finally gets a good look at his silver hair and clear blue eyes, realizing he is an incredibly beautiful water attribute user. He apologizes if his concern bothered her, but she quickly reassures him that it didn't. He admits he thought she looked strong enough to handle herself, but he noticed she seemed to be in real pain. With a soft smile, he confesses that he simply couldn't ignore her. Lisette gazes at him, stunned, as he tells her he was genuinely happy to see her again. Having survived her own trials as a court lady, Lisette reflects on her deep-seated desire to help others. She offers a warm, radiant smile as she expresses her heartfelt gratitude. Her expression shifts to one of absolute shock as she stares wide-eyed at an unexpected sight. A handsome nobleman smiles kindly, announcing their arrival at their destination. He waves a friendly farewell while reminding her to properly tend to her injured arm. Panic sets in as Lisette realizes she has once again failed to ask the mysterious man for his name. The narrative shifts focus back to Lisette's daily life as she moves toward a new chapter. A cheerful colleague enthusiastically breaks the news that a perfect new job opportunity has opened up. Her friend reveals that she has been recommended as a math tutor for a young boy because of her legendary skills. Lisette grows apprehensive upon learning the student is notorious for running away from every math class he attends. A few days later, she cautiously enters the grand, sunlit pavilion of the inner palace to begin her assignment. A small boy approaches her with curiosity, asking if she is the new teacher he has been expecting. After introducing herself as Lisette, she notices the boy, Charles, shares her own rare magical attributes. Charles observes her intently while she secretly fears he might reject her because of her dark attribute. Relieved by his acceptance, she formally invites Charles to begin their lesson. Realizing his deep-seated loathing for the subject, she prepares a special method to make the learning process engaging. She announces that she has prepared something truly unique for their first session together. To the boy's delight, she reveals a colorful assortment of candies prepared by the palace chef. She captures his full attention by showcasing the different flavors and vibrant colors of the treats. She turns the lesson into a game, promising him the candies if he can help her count them. Charles dives into the task with newfound excitement, counting through the piles of red and green sweets. While Charles is distracted by counting, Lisette feels the weight of a mysterious gaze watching them from the shadows. She assumes the observers are palace guards and concludes that Charles must come from an incredibly noble lineage. Charles proudly announces the total count of 19 and correctly identifies which color had more candy. Lisette beams with pride, revealing to the stunned boy that he was successfully performing math the entire time. She praises his effort warmly, telling him he did a truly wonderful job. An unseen observer watches the interaction with a look of pure amazement. Charles sprints joyfully into his mother's arms to receive a warm hug for his achievement. Lisette is struck by the woman's striking features and realizes she is the one who was watching them. Shock washes over her as she realizes her student is a prince and his mother is the crown princess, Mariel. Mariel gratefully calls Lisette their benefactor for instantly curing her son's hatred of studying. As Charles gleefully boasts of his success, Lisette reflects on the boy's natural brilliance. She observes the palace grounds, confident that Charles is now ready to learn from royal tutors. She takes a moment to process the whirlwind of events that led her to this royal encounter. Charles begs for the fun lessons to continue while the princess asks Lisette to stay a bit longer. Mariel requests that Lisette teach Charles as a child rather than a prince, making Lisette feel her past studies were worthwhile. Overwhelmed with emotion, Lisette realizes that all her previous hardships and efforts were not wasted. Meanwhile, Camille Archie erupts in fury over a massive bill and demands to know why the work wasn't dumped on Lisette. A household steward delivers the cold news that Lisette is no longer part of the family. Camille stands frozen in a state of utter disbelief and mounting panic. The steward explains that Lisette has officially removed her name from the count's records and will never return. He reveals that Lisette is now employed within the inner palace and that his own contract expires this very day. As he begins packing, he points out that Camille's lavish spending has left her with no funds to rehire him. Camille desperately begs him to renew his contract one last time, but he firmly refuses and departs. Elsewhere, the nobleman Damien stares at a document in disbelief, reeling from an unexpected development. Camille approaches Damien with a fake smile, apologizing for the delay while secretly plotting her next move. Damien introduces himself, and while Camille swoons over his handsome face, he asks if she is truly Lisette's sister. Camille introduces herself as Camille Archie, confident she can easily manipulate the innocent-looking noble. She spins a web of lies, painting Lisette as a cruel bully who tormented and physically abused her out of jealousy. Damien offers words of comfort for her supposed suffering, though he is internally horrified by the woman he was once engaged to. Camille manipulates Damien by suggesting he break off his engagement to her sister while he remains bound by his vow to inherit the Archie estate. Damien finds himself charmed by Camille's suggestion to choose her instead, momentarily forgetting his obligations and the pain he previously endured. The pair conspiratorially plan to force Lisette into a life of servitude, intending to exploit her labor while keeping her under their total control. Camille revels in the success of her scheme, convinced that her comfortable future is finally secured. Damien suddenly shifts his demeanor, casting a glance toward the exit as he prepares to make a hasty departure. He stammers through a final few words as the weight of the situation seems to cause him visible distress. Before leaving, Damien casually suggests they can marry after Camille graduates, though he insists he must return home immediately. To Camille's frantic dismay, Damien sprints through the doorway while shouting a vague promise to contact her again. Celine watches the chaotic exchange with a cold, knowing gaze that reveals her total lack of surprise. She smugly explains that she learned the harsh reality of being a lord from a high-ranking friend, questioning Camille's naive expectations. Celine details how even competent individuals struggle with the immense administrative burdens of managing a territory. She laughs openly at Camille's incompetence, stating she knew all along that her sister would fail to manage the estate. Camille explodes in anger, demanding to know why Celine remained silent despite seeing her struggle so much. Panic sets in for Camille as she realizes their carefree lifestyle has vanished, leaving her to wonder how they will survive. Celine indifferently announces she is moving into the academy dorms, making it clear that Camille's plight is no longer her concern. She reveals her father prepaid for 3 years of her housing, intending to simply marry into another family once she graduates. Celine pauses to deliver one final, crushing blow to her sister's already crumbling world. With a cruel smile, she tells Camille to survive on her own as she vows never to return to this household. Celine turns her back on the household, her quickening footsteps marking her final departure from the family home. Camille breaks down in the deserted corridor, clutching her head as the weight of her isolation finally sinks in. Lisette reflects on her liberation, officially bidding farewell to the useless Archie family and her selfish sister. She quietly resolves that she will never allow Camille to be happier than her, refusing to remain a gloomy failure any longer. Despite her new life, she feels a lingering curiosity about her sister's current miserable situation. Back at the palace, Lisette continues her duties, working closely with young Prince Charles on his studies. Princess Mariel expresses total shock upon hearing news of an impending transfer for Lisette. Lisette confirms the report with a polite smile, though she appears slightly nervous about the change. She explains that rotating through various departments is a standard part of training for new court ladies. Mariel realizes the new assignment is the Aegean district, a place located near her own cold hometown of Ruffall. Lisette admits her apprehension about the new location, while Mariel tries to reassure her despite the freezing climate. Mariel praises Lisette's outstanding work as a teacher, reminiscing about the success she had with Charles. She notes that Lisette's flawless manners and training under the Mage Corps captain made her the ideal choice for this new role. Charles reacts with sudden, tearful desperation upon realizing that Lisette is being sent so far away. The young prince stubbornly hides his loneliness, insisting he can handle calculations alone despite his obvious sadness. Lisette encourages the boy to do his best, offering him a warm smile as they prepare to say their final goodbyes. Watching through the carriage window, Lisette finally departs the inner palace to head toward her new territory. Her destination is the Aegean Mine, a site in royal territory that has recently been slated for closure due to declining output. Overseeing the closure is Lord Clement, the son of a former royal uncle, who is destined to rule the land once the mine is gone. The department's primary task is the complex adjustment of compensation for workers and locals suffering losses from the shutdown. Sitting in a carriage with a local clerk, Lisette considers asking for an update on the current progress of the closure. She tentatively speaks up to get the attention of the short-haired woman guiding her. The clerk, looking tired and distracted, asks if Lisette requires something from her. Lisette inquires about the state of the mine and whether Lord Clement has issued any specific instructions. The clerk bluntly reveals that Clement has provided absolutely no instructions for the department to follow. She clarifies that their superior hardly ever visits the department, leaving the staff completely without leadership. The woman admits that the entire staff is at their wits' end, forced to handle all administrative burdens on their own. She produces a document from her bag and hands it over for Lisette to inspect. Lisette is appalled to find that the department's official budget is insultingly small. She argues that the meager funds couldn't possibly cover the basic costs of supplies, meetings, and daily operations. The clerk darkly suggests that while more money should be available, it appears someone has been skimming from the treasury. Rumors within the department suggest that the culprit behind the missing funds is none other than Lord Clement himself. Lizette's eyes widen in utter shock as she realizes the person mentioned is Clement Sama personally. Though she initially struggled to believe the news, the reality of the situation begins to sink in as she processes the revelation. Standing in the library, a staff member explains that Clement Sama's contact is limited to paperwork and many have never actually seen him at the Ijin mine. Rumors swirl about him being a womanizer who squanders the budget on parties and frivolous pursuits rather than his duties. Caught off guard by these disparaging claims, Lisette struggles to find the words to respond to the sudden character assassination. She recalls a past meeting where he praised her capabilities and expressed a desire to work together, presenting a starkly different image. Lisette reflects on how she viewed him as a kind man who accepted her despite her black hair and eyes, wondering now if that kindness was a lie. The realization hits that even the compensation budget for meetings might have been misappropriated. Her companion confirms that Clement Sama explicitly instructed them to limit the use of those funds. Sighed with exhaustion, the staff member admits that motivation has vanished and they have no idea how to proceed with the mine's closure. Without any guidance from the higher-ups, the entire team is left completely in the dark regarding the process. Lisette realizes with mounting dread that the Ijin mine must be closed immediately, yet she is paralyzed by uncertainty on how to act. Despite a previous cave-in accident, no progress has been made on the closure because of the administrative stagnation. She worries for the workers who will lose their livelihoods and the urgent need to discuss their compensation. Snapping back to reality, Lisette is told they have arrived and must disembark from the carriage. Looking out over the landscape, she identifies the area as the Ijin territory for the first time. The town is a far cry from the capital's glamour, possessing only the bare minimum shops needed for daily survival. Anxiety hangs heavy in the air as residents worry about starvation and the loss of income if the mine shuts down. Witnessing the suffering, Lisette notes the department's lack of motivation while fearing the consequences if compensation isn't handled properly. Resolved to intervene, she decides she must do something even if she doesn't yet know what that path entails. Her companion abruptly interrupts her thoughts, asking why she is spacing out in the middle of their mission. Urged to keep moving, Lisette follows as they head toward a destination that her guide considers obvious. The guide points to a map, explaining they are heading to the Adventurers Guild to hire guards for the monster-infested mine area. Doubts arise regarding whether anyone will even take the job given the extremely small budget available. They arrive at a rustic building marked by a sword and shield sign, announcing their presence as they enter. A rugged man greets them with a weary look, noting that they have returned once again. The guide explains they need guards and guides, though she admits she isn't happy about being there either. After being introduced as the new court lady, Lisette watches as the guild master skeptically questions what someone like her could possibly contribute. The guild master flatly refuses the request, stating his men have all left for work in the neighboring territory. He notes that monsters increase in that area during this specific season, making it a more lucrative time for adventurers. Lizette's interest is piqued when she hears the neighboring territory is Ruffall. The realization that they are near the border market causes her to pause and reflect on the geography. A map illustrates how the Ijin and Ruffall territories are connected by a treacherous monster forest containing the mine. The guide prepares to leave the rest of the negotiation to Lisette, claiming she was only assigned to be a guide. Lisette requests permission to visit the mine to understand the situation firsthand, much to the guild master's confusion. She insists on handling the financial discussions and attending the compensation meetings personally. Stunned by her proposal, the guild master balks at the idea of leaving such a complex and important matter to a rookie court lady. Lisette counters that seeing the site in advance is exactly why she needs to go, refusing to back down from his rejection. She argues that negotiation is impossible without seeing the mine and demands to speak directly with the miners themselves. Despite the guild master's firm refusal to let her go without protection, Lisette internally resolves that she cannot give up. While she is terrified of being judged and facing the guild master's anger, she acknowledges her own limitations. She realizes that backing down will only make things worse for the people whose precious lives are currently at stake. Drawing strength from her past, she remembers the harsh training she endured under Captain Renoir as a student. Bolstered by her resilience, she convinces herself that she can handle this challenge and will be just fine. With a look of absolute determination, Lisette stares the guild master down and declares her intent to act. She announces her plan to become an adventurer herself to bypass the lack of available guards. The narrative marks a turning point as Chapter 5 begins to unfold. Lisette boldly demands to be registered as an adventurer if the guild is open to anyone. Clutching her fist, she declares that she will take full responsibility for her own safety and actions. The guild master reacts with shock and annoyance at the sheer audacity of this small court lady's demand. The guild master is momentarily stunned by Lisette's bold demand to be registered as an adventurer right then and there. Just as the tension reaches a breaking point, a familiar voice rings out, causing Lisette to turn in surprise. Lisette instantly recognizes the young man from the outer shrine, her eyes widening as the pieces of their past encounter click into place. Cyril approaches with a confident stride, revealing he has business in Aegon and questioning what Lisette is doing so far from the capital. Turning to the guild master, Cyril interjects with an air of authority that shifts the entire room's dynamic. Looking directly at Cyril, the guild master asks if he is truly serious about backing the court lady's reckless proposal. With a playful yet knowing smile, Cyril points out that female adventurers are a reality, even if they are a rare sight in a place like Aegon. Cyril locks eyes with Lisette and asserts that she has the ability to fight, effectively silencing the guild master's skepticism. Drawing upon her hidden strength, Lisette stands tall and confirms her readiness to prove her worth to everyone present. She reveals her background as a trainee under the prestigious Mage Corps, a secret that explains her unexpected combat potential. Lisette confidently explains that having mastered the basics of combat magic, she is more than capable of holding her own in the field. The guildmaster is visibly shaken by the mention of the Mage Corps, his rugged face flickering with newfound respect and surprise. Despite the impressive credentials, the veteran adventurer still voices his concern for her safety, questioning if a missy like her can truly survive. Lisette offers a compromise, promising that if the danger proves too great after her registration, she will immediately cease her mission. Her gaze remains unwavering as she pleads for just one chance to prove her capabilities through a practical test. Letting out a long, defeated sigh, the guild master finally relents and agrees to process her official registration. Beaming with gratitude, Lisette thanks the guild master while Cyril watches her with an amused, supportive expression. Lisette bows deeply to Cyril, thanking him for saving her from a certain rejection and properly introducing herself by name. Cyril dismisses her worries with a charming smile and introduces himself, the air around him shimmering with a noble grace. As the name Cyril-sama sinks in, Lisette realizes the weight of the social standing possessed by the man who just stood up for her. She reflects on how close she came to failure, knowing the guild master would have surely refused her if Cyril hadn't intervened. Cyril offers a final, gentle warning for her to remain cautious while navigating the treacherous territory outside the town walls. An attendant suddenly interrupts the moment, urgently reminding Cyril-sama that his schedule is pressing and they must leave. Giving a polite nod, Cyril prepares to depart, his sudden appearance having completely changed the course of Lisette's fate. Watching him go, Lisette reaches out a hand, struck by the realization of how incredibly busy a high-ranking noble truly is. Cyril's carriage rattles away as he prepares to return to his estate, leaving the adventurers' guild behind. The scene fades as Lisette's internal resolve hardens, marking the beginning of her new life as an adventurer in the service of the mine. Gazing out the carriage window, Cyril realizes with a start that Lisette must be the same girl his sister had mentioned previously. A montage reveals Lisette's meteoric rise, hunting beasts on the road to the mine and quickly climbing from C rank to B rank status. The townspeople grow so fond of her that they suggest she quit her useless boss and move to Aegon permanently. Through her hard work as an adventurer, Lisette earns the deep trust of both the locals and the miners, making her negotiations much smoother. Despite her success at the mine, she sees that the entire territory is still trapped in a cycle of crushing poverty and stagnation. Lisette realizes that truly fixing Aegon would require land reform, an act that would be considered overstepping her bounds as a mere lady-in-waiting. She feels a sense of despair as she notes that the ruler, Lord Clement, has never once visited Aegon or shown any intention of helping his people. A year and a half passes, and while the mine closure is finished on paper, the actual progress remains bogged down in bureaucracy. Lisette walks through the palace corridors, confused by the fact that she is the only one who hasn't received a transfer notice yet. She presents the complicated situation to Crown Princess Marielle, who listens intently to the report of the mine's status. Marielle notes with concern that time is running out for the department, finding the lack of a decision regarding Lisette's future very strange. The princess reassures Lisette that the delays are not her fault, especially given the tangible results she produced at the mine. Marielle asks if Clement has said anything specific, but Lisette admits his only response was a vague, cryptic promise of future news. Clement's words haunt Lisette, as he claimed she would only know her fate once the current department officially ends. Lisette and Marielle ponder the meaning of the ruler's mysterious statement, wondering what could possibly happen at the end. A sudden spark of realization crosses Princess Marielle's face as she considers a new and high-stakes possibility. Marielle suggests that perhaps Clement intends to promote Lisette to the prestigious and powerful position of his personal secretary. Lisette is taken aback, knowing that a secretary is a special post that serves a high-ranking noble with near-total authority. Marielle praises Lisette's capability and reveals she also has a recommendation in mind that would carry immense responsibility. With a bright smile, Marielle declares that she wants Lisette to become the secretary for the Margrave in her own hometown. Shocked and overwhelmed, Lisette stammers at the idea of serving such a high-ranking noble in a position of such importance. Marielle tells her to relax, revealing that the Margrave is actually her own little brother and would be very forgiving of any mistakes. The history of the lineage is revealed, noting that Crown Princess Marielle is the first child while her brother, the second son, inherited the territory. Lisette hesitantly admits she does not think she is suited for the role of the Margrave's secretary while Princess Marielle insists the position is perfect for her. Marielle clasps her hands together, pleading with Lisette to visit Luffer just once if her future transfer still has not been finalized. Unable to refuse such a stunning and intimidating beauty, Lisette reluctantly agrees to the princess's persistent request. Arriving at Lord Clement's office, Lisette politely announces herself as she prepares to submit her final report. With the department's tasks officially complete, Lisette informs the Lord that all she has left to do is return her room key. Mustering her courage, she directly asks Clement if her next transfer destination has finally been decided. Clement gazes at a vase of lilies, cryptically remarking that the time for a significant change has finally arrived. To Lisette's bewilderment, he joyfully reveals that he has gotten engaged and plans to bring his new bride to Aegon immediately upon her graduation. Stunned by the unexpected news, Lisette offers her congratulations but wonders why he is sharing this personal detail instead of answering her work-related question. She realizes with frustration that she asked about her career transfer, yet he is suddenly fixated on discussing his impending marriage. Clement ignores the confusion and excitedly offers to introduce his cute fiancée to Lisette right then and there. He calls out for the girl to enter, revealing that he has already brought her to the office for this very meeting. The door opens to reveal the mysterious figure, leaving Lisette bracing for an introduction she never expected. Horror and confusion wash over Lisette's face as she stares at the newcomer, her voice trembling as she asks why this is happening. The girl steps forward, her long dress rustling as she remarks on how much time has passed since they last met. With a cruel smirk, the girl mocks Lisette for being as plain as ever before, addressing her as her older sister.